On today's Monday News Pod, the San Diego Padres close out their series on a bad note with Matt Waldron getting absolutely torched, but there's so much that happened this weekend with the Luis Arraez trade, Joe Musgrove heading to the IL, what all that means, and also answering your questions and comments. Lots to get into. It's the Monday Pod. Let's start.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Monday, May 6th. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. As always, I am your host with sometimes occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You may be familiar with my baseball-related work over at Just Baseball, a fantastic website where I write about not just the Padres, but general baseball stuff. And speaking of general baseball stuff, I also host a new podcast called Baseball versus the World, which is about all the fun, evergreen topics of baseball stuff. This week, going to be talking about Scott Boras quotes. But, ladies and gentlemen, you can find this podcast wherever you get your podcasts from, and, blah, blah, blah. You know the deal by now. Today's episode, we are breaking down not just this weekend series, but some of the news announcements with guys getting sent down, with guys getting called up, and of course, a little bit more on the Luis Arraez trade, although I do recommend everyone check out as well what I put out on Saturday, which was just kind of my initial reaction. We'll talk a little bit more about that. It was a fun weekend. It was a really, really fun weekend. What can I say? This was an absolutely wild weekend for Padres baseball, and frankly, just anyone who existed on the internet, if you know what I mean. So it was really, really wild this weekend, and I enjoyed it, and we got to dive all into it. Even if it did end on a sour note, I think that this was a really, really great weekend, and we should be very happy about it. So let's get into it, guys. Firstly, though, today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting those dastardly friends of yours. So download Monopoly Go, now free on Google Play or the App Store. Check it out. And check this out, ladies and gentlemen. The San Diego Padres, man, what a weekend. First, because I've been accused. I have a favorite new troll lately, by the way. I'll get to you a little bit later, sir. I love this guy. And I think that this is in general something that gets brought up with literally everyone I've ever talked about. So any of you who do this, like, you are absolutely living the cliches that you only talk negative, you only do this. It's like as if our job is to blindly always be positive about our teams. Like, just go check Twitter. You got the fans and whatnot do the same thing. Every now and then they'll be negative. But I'm not doing that. And in fact, this is even though they do get crushed on Sunday. And let's talk about that really quickly. It was still a great weekend. 11-4 on Sunday's game. Matt Waldron is, of course, in the line of fire on this one. 3 innings, 8 hits amounting to 8 runs. 7 earned runs on 8 hits. One of them, there was an error that occurred. Shouts to Luis Arraez. We got to talk about it in a little bit. So not great there. But, folks, I feel like, and also the Padres did score 4 runs. I think that they deserve a little bit of a shout out for the fact that they go down to start this game. Matt Waldron, by the way, 6.5 ERA in the first 3 innings this year, and then a 1.65. I believe, or at least around that. I don't have the numbers right in front of me. Now, obviously, those numbers have gone up dramatically because of what happened in this game. Just got absolutely crushed, didn't have any control, and especially that second inning, by the way. Holy God, he was like throwing outside. There was a point, I believe it was an at-bat to Tucker Barnhart, when he was literally like, he signaled like he, what's the word? When you give it away, I don't know the term that I'm looking for right now. Like, he already, like, was giving up on the pitch. Like, he was ready to take the count all the way. And Waldron still threw, like, very outside. Guys were not chasing anything like that. So, it was a really bad start with Waldron. And don't get me wrong, the Diamondbacks offense was pretty quiet this entire weekend, if we're being honest. They just didn't really show up all that much, which is great for the Padres, but it is worth bringing up. Like, okay, they were going to score at one point, and the knuckleball guy who can be, he can get hit pretty hard sometimes, would be expected. Now, I do want to bring up a couple things, though. First of all, Padres Data Daily on Twitter brought this up, and I think that this is kind of my same opinion, which is that Matt Waldron has allowed 4 runs or less in 5 of his 7 starts this season, and that doesn't excuse him, but I do think that there needs to be some tempered expectations that this guy's the 5 starter on your team, And while, yes, it would be great if he was better, it'd be great if he was as good as like some of the 5 stars the Padres had last year, where you were expecting a little bit out of, Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo, and they delivered. Bottom line, though, is you wouldn't be that worried about what Matt Waldron is doing if the actual top guys in this pitching rotation, outside Dylan Cease, produced a lot more. Obviously, Darvish just came back from the IL, but he'd been a little bit shaky too. Joe Musgrove, who was going to the IL, he'd been a disaster all year. Michael King has a good start this weekend, but he's been either giving up 8 runs on like 4 home runs, or he's been having those games where he gets 12 strikeouts, all that stuff. So it feels worse than it actually is. I think that Waldron deserves one more chance, because again, I really do think that his knuckleball can be really awesome sometimes, and he was just completely off, and he was so off that I really want to chalk this up to an off day. Again, that second inning, he was throwing so many pitches that guys they were just staring at them. They had no bite to them. They were going all over across the plate. Higashioka, who's a great defensive catcher, missed a couple, allowing runners to advance. Like, it just feel like he spiraled. Unfortunately. And I really do think that he deserves another shot. I don't think that he's an ace or anything like that. I don't think there's too much upside with a guy like this. But while we're waiting on your Robbie Snellings and Adam Mazers to get called up, which I think is a good thing, I don't think that you should rush your prospects. I think it's okay to be like, let's see what Matt Waldron has. Especially because it's not like we know for a fact what those guys will do. I really just think Waldron had a bad start, and I think that he could be a little bit better. Again, first 3 innings, he's gotten lit up. I remember his last start before this, he ended up going 6 innings after allowing like 4. I believe it. Yeah, he went 6 innings, and basically all the damage that was done to him by the Reds was in that first or second inning, and he still went 6 innings. So give him a second. He's not going to be an ace. Don't expect that from him, right? Do not expect that. Instead, unfortunately, though, it came at a bad time, and he just completely imploded. But no one's talking about how we need to send Michael King down. So that's my thing, to defend Matt Waldron for some reason. Maybe I feel this kinship with him because for so long I kept calling him Michael Waldron by accident because of the, he's a guy who writes Marvel stuff. He's a big writer in Hollywood. So I keep getting them mixed up sometimes. But in this case, I'm not blaming him. I do want to give credit to the Padres, though, with their bats. And I know that the final score is 11-4, but that's because the offense just... pitching didn't support them. The Padres bring in Matt Waldron, obviously, and then they bring in Johnny Brito, who then gives up 3 runs too. So, like, it was just too insurmountable, right? But the fact that you gave up those 4 runs and immediately struck back, I do think is a thing worth remembering. This team has some bite to it. After giving up those 4 runs to start the game, the Padres then get a home run on it. I believe it was the first pitch, just like a scoop shot over to right field and out of the ballpark by Jackson Merrill, allowing Xander Bogaerts to score. And then Kyle Higashioka actually hit a double to drive in Ha-Seong Kim. We also get later on, in top of the third, final run of the game, Machado grounds into a double play. But whatever, Machado's actually been great lately, allowing Tatis to score. So I want to hone in on that. I really want to hone in on that. The Padres have been doing stuff this year, and this isn't even a statistical thing in a lot of ways. And I you know me, I'll give you guys some stats every now and then. Not hardcore stats. I'm not a Fangraphs writer. I'm not that smart. I told you guys, I'm an idiot. But I just think, genuinely speaking, like, we've seen so much this year that they haven't done last year. Whether it be individual players like Profar and Cronenworth and Merrill, and Tatis getting better to his MVP level, versus just the vibe of the team. Like, they showed some fight there. Like, I really respect that. They did not lay over, even though it looked like this is not good that your pitcher's getting lit up so early. They came right back. And Jackson Merrill especially, he'd been in a little bit of rookie wall lately. Little tiny bit of a slump lately, which is fine. I think he's going to be okay. But, and it's especially great to see him tap into that power, by the way. That I just, we've had a bunch of comebacks this week. We had the big offensive explosion yesterday. I just feel like clearly some different vibes with this team this year. So that was really good, and I think is worth holding on to. It does stink how it ended up going, like I said, but all in all, I agree with Padres Data Daily. He really hasn't been that bad, and I think he deserves one. Now, if he gets lit up again, gives up like 6 or 5 in like 3 innings, then maybe we have to start looking at something else, especially if his stuff looks out of control as much as it was yesterday. So we'll have to see how that transpires. But yeah, that's it for that game, guys. But there's more we got to talk about, namely with Saturday and Friday's games. Saturday and Friday, frankly, were just the wildest times for me that I've had this year. Shouts to Drake and Kendrick Lamar, which I will obviously not be talking about, but just a wild succession of just news and stories, including like, playoff games in the NBA that I was following a little bit, just crazy news and whatnot. And we got a lot more to unpack. got a lot more to unpack. So before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, before we do that, I want to talk to you really quickly, though, about our friends over at... I couldn't hold in the sneeze. I'm sorry. Over at LinkedIn. And you guys probably know what LinkedIn is, folks. You already know. You know what I mean? You already know what LinkedIn's about. And they are here to help you with your recruiting, with your sales, whatever it is as you as an employer or employee, they've got you covered. And let me tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. It is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers, drive higher revenue, and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator allows you to find and target the right buyers, surface key signals such as like which jobs you want to prioritize first, and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter, folks. So right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day. 60 days, guys. 2 whole months, man. We're going to be at the All-Star break by the time that thing's up. At free trial at linkedin.com/locked-on. That is linkedin.com/locked-on for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar, like a Tatis of the selling world today. Just go to linkedin.com/locked-on to get started. And speaking of money, you know what I mean? But in a different way, a more fun, silly, goofy way, folks. I am a competitive dude, let me tell you, and I know I've already talked about this plenty of times. I don't care, though, because Monopoly Go is very fun, and I always love getting in on whatever the trendy new game is and whatnot. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments. You can work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more prizes you unlock. That's right. They have like all these different options. It's like a little bit of a remix on the game, the classic game, and it's just a little bit more easy to access. It's got different things. And you can be disrespectful. You can take a wrecking ball to your friend's bank. You can buy all these different not buy, like, you earn coins and whatnot and whatnot to be able to unlock new things like emojis, like different boards, and there's a bunch of different boards. So that's really cool. And of course, though, most importantly, you got to talk to your friends. So go do that with Monopoly Go. There's always something funny and fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now, free on the Google Play or the App Store. Game on, yes, filthy sons of guns. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Locked On Padres podcast. Frankly, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know what that filthy sons of guns thing was at the end of that ad read. I don't know. I apologize. Look, I just say what comes to mind. But there was more baseball, folks, aside from Sunday's game. Now we get into the fun stuff. Saturday's game, 13-1 explosion by the Padres. Again, as I was alluding to in the first segment, so many things from this team that we hadn't really seen last year. The fight, the comebacks, and in this case, just some immaculately good vibes. Seriously. In this game, the first game for Luis Arraez for the San Diego Padres, 4 for 6 with a double and an RBI. Come on, at the top of the lineup. The fact that he was already ready immediately, which was dope, by the way. I had tweeted out, it's awesome that the Padres, we got to see their full potential lineup immediately. They had a Campuzano playing as well. You had Jackson Merrill in the lineup. So it was this is the playoff lineup. If they make the playoffs, you know what I'm saying? That was kind of what they got there. And it was great. It was great. It was a really fun game to just experience as a Padres fan. Tatis actually doesn't do too much in this game after, doing something on Friday. He does not do too much in this one, only 1 for 5. And then Jake Cronenworth, 2 for 6 with a strikeout in this one, but he does get 2 hits. And then Manny Machado, who's been slowly heating up, by the way. We haven't talked enough, frankly. And by we, I mean me, on this podcast about Machado. I told you I was optimistic about him, and he's been a lot better. I don't know if the MVP version of him is still in there. I do wonder about that. His slash line on the year of 258, 312, 414 is not great. In fact, it's right? Now he's going to play good defense, hopefully. He's been back at third base. He's slowly getting back into that. He's had a rough start to the season. He has. Just objectively speaking, he's been rough. I am wondering if the MVP version of Machado's gone. If that's the case, that is worth looking into. Now, he's still got a lot of years left. There's a lot of time. He could randomly put up a great season at 36. We see it all the time, right? Like we've seen guys that you think they're past their prime or whatever, and then they come back and have a really great season. It can happen sometimes, for sure. It's not a guarantee that if you start seeing signs of decline, that it means that they will never have that good season again. Does that make any sense? Evan Longoria is coming to mind, where Evan Longoria was a little bit down for a little bit, and then he hit like 38 bombs. Then, he had some average seasons after that, but whatever, I'm getting too insider baseball and too much on Machado. Jeez. But shouts to him going 2 for 4 in this game with 3 RBIs and a double. Jurickson Profar. Is there more I have to say? 3 for 4 in this one with 2 runs scored, 2 RBIs, a home run, and a stolen base just for funsies thrown in there. Xander Bogaerts actually gets in on the fun too. He gets a double. Bogaerts is still a problem, but I like to see that he's at least gotten some extra base hits lately. Right, he's got two doubles in this series. That's nice to see, right? At least a little bit. But again, I don't really know what to say. The fact that he's strikes out like every game lately is not great either. It's only 1 strikeout, but it just shows sometimes he's not even putting the ball in the play as much as we would like. He's been a little bit better, but his last multi-hit game was against Colorado at Coors Field, so keep that in mind. I don't know what else to say about him, but whatever. Jackson Merrill, 2 for 4 in this game with an RBI as well. And then Luis Campusano, 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs, a double, and I believe a walk. So all in all, really great. Oh, and then Ha-Seong Kim, Ha-Seong Kim having the 1 for 5 game with 4 ribbies. He got a home run in this one as well. Really, really great stuff. Just home run palooza for the Padres. And then Michael King has himself a nice bounce back start. I wasn't super impressed though, because I do think there is something to be said for you being up by this many amount of runs, having not as much pressure, and not necessarily looking like a superstar or anything like that. Now, he doesn't have to look like a superstar at all times. We've talked about a lot on this podcast how, you don't have to have like 8 starting pitchers who all look like they're Cy Young candidates to have a good rotation. Look at last year with the Padres, right? Like that's okay. You just need to be okay. And Michael King has just been, you never know what you're going to get from him. But he didn't impress me too much. Still gives up 6 hits. I do love that he didn't walk any batters. That's great. Is that partially because the Diamondbacks were like, we're down by 13, like we have to just swing and see if we could catch up? Maybe. Didn't generate too many whiffs. Only 1 whiff on 16 swings of his fastball. He got a couple on his changeup and his sweeper. It was okay. But the max exit velocity was still up there a little bit for him that he was allowing. I didn't love that. Still gave up some hard contact in this one. Obviously, the Padres led, but you had a Christian Walker hit. You had Blaze Alexander, Kevin Newman. There was some hits in this one that were hit pretty hard. And they didn't amount to too many hits, but here's how I say it. I want to see it again before I buy into any of this, because to me, it wasn't that impressive of a start. I didn't feel like the Diamondbacks were totally lost there. It felt like what happened to us, where it was like, hey, we're down by too many runs. It seems like this game is a little bit out of control, so it's hard to weigh in like how to feel about this. So that's how I felt a little bit. So don't get me wrong. I still am optimistic that Michael King can get better, but as of right now, this is still a problem for the Padres that they have 2 pitchers, one of them who's on the IL, that just have really produced at a poor level. So great game on Saturday. And as I tweeted, the Padres offense exploded in Luis Arraez's first game and won their 4th game in a row. And in 2023, the Padres didn't win 4 in a row until September 17th. Yes, 1, I know, 2023 is still as bad as you remember. And 2, like I said in the first segment, a lot of little things that are very much diametrically opposed to how the Padres performed last year. And that's good, even if the win-loss record isn't where we'd like it to be at 18-19. Don't get me wrong. And again, we could also lose the next upcoming games against the Cubs. That could totally happen. But for now, I just want to emphasize that there's tangible things we can point to and say the Padres are better here. We just need some guys to step up better. Last game, though, Friday, in which they win and in which the Luis Arraez trade gets announced. It doesn't start off necessarily as great. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. Dylan Cease in this game. Speaking of people who haven't started off their season very well, or not speak. I can't talk. Hold on. Breathe in, breathe out. I'm just so nervous, guys. But no, Friday's game, Dylan Cease, as usual, is electric. 6 2/3, only 1 earned run on 3 hits. No walks, which was great. No walks against a pretty good Diamondbacks lineup, right? And Cease has had some starts like that, like at Colorado when he didn't walk anybody. But even still, I always love for a guy like Cease, who can be a little bit wild sometimes, for him not to have any walk. There has been the fact that this was a weekend of not just Cease, again, adding on to my point about how we're seeing things this year that haven't happened to the Padres recently, just in this more philosophical view, that they got Luis Arraez immediately great, and then Dylan Cease they got, and he's been immediately great, except for his first start, which, by the way, wasn't even that bad when he went 4 2/3 and gave up 2 earned runs. Like, that's not even that bad. So, like, he's been amazing this year. 2.5 ERA in the season, not much else to say. Made those Diamondbacks batters look silly. In this game, though, Profar 1 for 3 with a walk. This was all about Tatis, Cronenworth, and Machado, pretty much in this game. And also, unfortunately, my arch nemesis, Tyler Wade, he does go 2 for 4 in this one. But Tatis, 3 for 5 with 3 RBIs, including a home run. Jake Cronenworth, 3 for 5 with an RBI, 2 doubles, and a home run. This is what I'm saying, guys. There's been guys that have been better. So hold on to that. We'll see. And then Machado, 1 for 4 with 2 RBIs on a home run as well as a walk. So really great from the top players in this Padres lineup, the guys that are supposed to do well. Tatis has still had... This is why, like, I'm not worried about him being good, as I talked about last week. I'm worried about, like, is the MVP version there? It feels like he's pressing sometimes. It feels like he just has these weird games where you're like, oh, like, those swings are a little bit odd. He's fine. He's going to be great. I just wonder about the MVP sky high thing. He doesn't seem like he's gotten super hot. I mean, that's emphasized by the fact that he's hitting 245 with a 329 on base. Prior to this, by the way, in 2021, this guy had a 364 on base, 2020, 366, 2019, 379. So this is what I'm saying. Like, it's worth keeping an eye on this and wondering, like, is that MVP form still in there? We'll see. I'm still very excited, though. He's looked great. So great win for the Padres on Friday. And it was great to see that they just started lighting up the scoreboard quite literally right when the news dropped that Luis Arraez had been traded. And we got to talk about Luis Arraez and a couple other things, including Joe Musgrove heading to the IL and answering some of your questions. So don't worry, we got a lot of pod left, ladies and gentlemen. But I just want to get one last thing out of the way, folks, and that is some more financial stuff, some more money stuff. You know what I mean? And that's important. And I'm talking, of course, about finance with Yahoo. Folks, let's talk about Yahoo Finance for a second. Let me tell you, here's the thing. Let's get to the point. You want to grow your portfolio, especially with the rising costs of inflation, to pay off your debt or your mortgage or whatever it may be, any sort of bills that you have left over, pretty much anything standing in the way of you and your financial freedom. And with Yahoo Finance, you can get access to the news, data, and tools that you need in order to help reach that financial freedom. It's really great. Look, whatever you're dealing with, if you got some medical bills to look into, if you've got, like they said, mortgage or whatnot. Maybe you just want to, check how much money you have. Maybe you want to look into getting a house. You know what I mean? Whatever it is. I don't know. I'm not a big money genius, but Yahoo Finance is very helpful, giving you all these sorts of tips, all these sort of insights that can help you out. You can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. Like, if you make investments, if you want your 401k to be covered and whatnot, they've got you covered for more than 25 years. Yahoo Finance, 25 years. So they got a little bit of that pedigree, you know what I'm saying? Has been the brand behind every great investor. They are the #1 finance destination, producing a holistic look at the financial news cycle, including news, editorials, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. Folks, let me tell you, if you want that comprehensive breakdown, go check out Yahoo Finance at yahoofinance.com. Pretty straightforward, right? yahoofinance.com. Go check it out. With over 90 million users each month. Why not? Everybody's doing it. So go check it out. Yahoo Finance. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast. Before I get into some of your questions, let's talk about some of the news updates already talked about. Matt Waldron and stuff like that. But Joe Musgrove heading to the IL, killing a little bit of the good vibes that we were all having basically this entire weekend. And if you're like me, enjoying drama and playoff basketball and other random nonsense, it was a really fun weekend, and it still was. But this one, reading from the San Diego Union Tribune, from Kevin Acey, the right-hander is experiencing discomfort near the rear of his right elbow, attributed to triceps tendonitis, and the team decides to shut him down for a period of rest. He was placed on the 15-day injured list Sunday. Randy Vasquez was called up from AAA and will meet the Padres in Chicago, where Musgrove was scheduled to start Tuesday against the Cubs. The decision was described as precautionary and akin to the move to put Yu Darvish on the IL last month with neck tightness. Darvish spent the minimum 15 days down before returning to pitch 5 scoreless innings against the Reds on Tuesday. The hope is Musgrove will be ready to start in the Padres' series in Atlanta against the Braves that begins May 17th. So, this is what I'm talking about. The Padres pitching is really just the complete opposite of last year. I know that everyone's going to start, well, that's because, look what happened. You lost Blake Snell. Well, Blake Snell's been a little bit of a mess, and we got in return someone who's been better than him in Dylan Cease. It's been that guys have been falling off. And Randy Vasquez wasn't great. He hasn't been great necessarily with the Padres so far. Him and Brito both, it really stinks that kind of, unless you view the trade from a perspective of Drew Thorpe allowed them to get Dylan Cease, the trade has been low-key really bad. I still think that what they got at the time was good, in all seriousness, and I'm still mocking the Yankees fans who were like, oh no, but we're giving up Michael King too, as if like getting one, oh, but he's only for a year. No, he's not. I don't know why the Yankees fans have been doing that. Padres fans, you deserve to be annoyed by it as much as I am. Granted, me more so because I'm in the New York area, so I hear it all the time. It's just a 1-year rental. No, it's not. If he does well with the Yankees, I promise you, they can't let him go. It's the Yankees. They can afford any player they want 10 times over. They could get 3 Ohtanis if they wanted to. It's dead serious when I say that. So that really stinks. But Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito, and who was the other player they got? Kyle Higashioka, and then Drew Thorpe. Basically, aside from Thorpe being used to Cease, has not been good so far with the Padres. And so far with them, he's got a 5.87 ERA. Vasquez, not a lot of strikeouts, walking more batters than I would like. Just not great. Like I said, not great. He does deserve a little bit more of an opportunity. And frankly, I really like, it's a small consolation prize, but I like that the Padres didn't say, you know what, let's call up Adam Mazur. Let's call up Robbie Snelling, who have been performing very, very well in the minor leagues. I talked with Arm Layton, host of the Call Up Prospect Guru, a couple weeks ago. He's been good. Robbie Snelling's got a 3.68. He's looked pretty solid. Strikeout rate has been okay too, but it's still Double-A. And then Adam Mazur, same thing. He's been dealing. I do like, though, that the Padres aren't going to that immediately. And that's what's kind of fun about the return package that they had, right? For Juan Soto, where like you just got some arms, you got some depth that you can at least try out. You've got these, you don't have like disposable, washed up starters who you know aren't like, I don't want to be having like, oh God, we had to sign Madison Bumgarner or Corey Kluber types. You know what I mean? I know Corey Kluber retired, but you get my point. So I like that. What can he do? I think that he's got a little bit more stuff than was showcased. I think he's got a little bit more spice to his mix. We'll have to see, though. I frankly just don't know enough about him. I need more data on him before I can render a verdict. I do know that Johnny Brito has been bad. And shouts to who was it that was, it was like a writer for Sports Illustrated on the Padres who was like, I don't understand how we keep starting Waldron. We need to bring in Johnny Brito. And I'm like, okay, I understand the Waldron frustration, although, like I said in the first segment, he actually hasn't been that bad. But why do you act like Johnny Brito's some ace? Like, Johnny Brito has really struggled every opportunity. Now, don't get me wrong, part of it has been that they've put him in some high leverage situations, particularly early on in the season. But my thing is like, give him a second. Come on. Give the man a second. You know what I mean? Randy Vasquez, give him a second. So Johnny Brito, not been good. We'll have to see what Randy Vasquez can do. But I do like that they're not forcibly calling up their prospects, which is, frankly, when I heard this news, I was like, uh-oh, here comes Mazur. Here comes Snelling. Heck, here comes Lesko, who I think he's like a year away. He needs more time. We'll see. Hopefully it's nothing too bad, though. It doesn't sound from those initial reports that it's too bad, but it does stink that it really hurt the good vibes. Not only do you lose Musgrove to the IL, who, by the way, had his best start of the season in his last one. So if you want me to be negative, that's the negative of the weekend. It was just a little bit of a killjoy. So that stinks. Hopefully he comes back soon, and hopefully he doesn't have to work himself back to what he'd been doing in his last few starts, which is showing more signs of being back to the Joe Musgrove that we know and love. So we'll have to see. But that's not all, ladies and gentlemen. That's not all. Another thing that happened is Luis Arraez was traded to the San Diego Padres. In the trade, they gave up Woo-Sok Go, Nathan Martorella, who was it? Dylan Head, and one more that I am blanking on. And I got to Google this right now. But they didn't give up, any golden egg prospects. I actually think some of those guys can be okay, though. I really do. I actually kind of like your Dylan Head better than a Samuel Zavala. Frankly, I think Zavala is too much based on athleticism and like raw in your face eye test stuff versus like some of the data. But again, that's just me. He might be awesome at some point. But with this team, and yeah, I'm just getting Nathan Martorell, Dylan Head, Jacob Marcy. Thank you, Jacob Marcy, who once upon a time we thought was going to be a starting left fielder, by the way, for the Padres. So Luis Arraez, with this deal, I just think that he fits this team a lot more. He's not a guy who depends on power, and in more pitcher-friendly confines at Petco Park, I think that's good because I don't think his stuff depends on that. He's batting average, singles, getting on base type of stuff, and you saw it in that first game. He can be a spark plug big time. The bottom of that lineup, if you get like a Campuzano on base, right, there are going to be situations as the season goes along where as long as Campuzano gets on base, boom, then you get Arraez at the top of the lineup, or let's say it's Kim who's batting 9. Like, it just adding this one batter I think is huge, and he's not the type of guy to carry an offense or even improve your offense too much. He's the type of guy that you want to bring in when you already have some established pros, and he's just the appetizer, dare I say. That sounds bad, but it's actually like a real big compliment on my part. I don't mean it in a bad way at all. So we'll have to see how it all transpires, but hey, I will say Eggy Rosario sent down instead of Tyler Wade. Is that a little bit frustrating? Sure, especially considering that Eggy Rosario at least showed you that he was better against lefties. But with the Arraez trade, it makes sense. Look, here's the thing. First of all, Eggy, very reliant on facing lefties so far, and he didn't do much as I would have liked in high leverage situations. I'm still annoyed that they didn't give him more opportunities because this is kind of what I was saying early on in the season where I was like, look, Machado's going to be back at third base at some point. So why aren't you trying some guys who have some upside, some young guys who you don't know enough about versus a Tyler Wade who you know a little bit more about? And I know, by the way, that Tyler Wade has been a lot better. His total season stats are actually not bad. I don't mind him being on this team. I really don't. It's just I didn't understand that when a guy's batting 140 over his last 15 games, why he would keep getting consistent at-bats. I don't understand why he earned that, if that makes a lot of sense, right? But overall, he just hasn't played too bad. In fact, his F4 of 0.4 for a role player isn't bad. 97 WRC plus. He's actually been on a little bit of a hot streak, and that's probably why they're keeping him up. It's still annoying because he's hitting 258 with a 347 on base. 288 slugging is bad. So again, that's why I don't like it. But more importantly than the Eggy and high leverage situations and the fact that Tyler Wade had been on a little bit of a hot streak, more importantly is that Tyler Wade gives you speed. He could be used as a pinch runner and has actually done a little bit better of late, like I mentioned. So they want to have that's useful off the bench to have a sort of pinch runner who can do that. And he's been a guy that can start something every now and then. I still don't like it. But we'll see. I actually think that Eggy Rosario and Grant Pauley are going to be used as trade chips. I really do. I've been saying this about Pauley since the beginning. I know we've seen the patterns with Preller forcing up a prospect, and if they're not great immediately, they'll probably be used in trades, hopefully for good players, which usually on paper, they're traded for good players, but we'll have to see how that transpires. And also worth mentioning, Donovan Solano was just added to the roster as well. I have found it weird, and this is the Twitter echo chamber, how many people have been tweeting about how wow, it's ridiculous that Donovan Solano isn't on the major league roster. And it's like, look, I like Donovan Solano, Donnie Barrels, as they call him, but he is old. You know what I'm saying? He's 36 and he needed to get his reps down there. Again, I like him. This is a guy with a WRC plus over 100 ever since 2019 with the Giants. I like that and all, but let's not act like he's a guarantee. But that type of guy as a bench bat, ooh, now you're talking. You know what I mean? You're not relying too much on him. So that should be a lot of fun. Hopefully Schilt can take advantage of the matchups. I still want to keep talking about Luis Arraez, frankly, but I want to get into some of your questions and comments. First of all, we've got, what do we got here? I'm going to save my troll for a little bit later, who I keep running into. I have too many. Let me see what we got here. Okay. Super reviews for you. He says Padres signed Manny Machado, Xander Bogaerts, Fernando Tatis Jr., and Jay Cronenworth for over $1 billion. They have a combined 255 batting average, 323 on base percentage, 424 slug, and a 747 OPS since 2023 started. These are supposed to be their prime years too. What happens in 3 years? If Padres don't fix this quick, they can be looking at nearly a decade of pain. I mostly agree. Now, I will say that Cronenworth, a lot of those stats, the combined stats, are from last year, and Tatis 1 year removed of the suspension and injury, and then Machado, same thing. But the Bogaerts thing, I 100%, I understand that. The Bogaerts thing has been He's Rendon. Like, he straight up is like an Anthony Rendon. Like, that's how bad this is. In fact, forget Anthony Rendon. At least Anthony Rendon had, like, injuries that kept him out. This guy is Jose Abreu. Like, guys, I'm serious. I am so dead serious when I say that. Jose Abreu got demoted the other day, like, sent to AAA. Like, that's how bad he's been. And he was literally putting together, like, MVP seasons for the White Sox and then just stinks now. That's what we're having with Xander Bogaerts right now without the excuse of, like, you're 38 years old and all that stuff, right? Like, it's crazy what's going on with them right now. But I agree with the central point you're trying to make. And I would like to add, again, it is not the depth to me. It is always that the stars are not performing like stars. That's been my thing since last year. That's my thing this year. Hopefully it gets better. We've already seen with Tatis, and especially Cronenworth, that it can be, and a little bit of Machado as of late. In terms of more questions, though, I was surprised. I didn't get a lot of DMs this week. Usually I have a lot of, like, fun, occasionally silly DMs. I didn't get a lot from y'all this week. I will say, I will repeat one that I was tagged in a question fairly recently over the Luis Arraez thing, and I want to talk about that really quickly because I think it's a fair thing to bring up. But ladies and gentlemen, let's continue with reading some of the comments. Another one. Oh no, I forgot about this one. Hold on. Jurassic Profar from @TyGrunge. Shouts to everyone who listened to me and Miller Thomas of Locked On Diamondbacks. He is really funny with his name mispronunciation sometimes, and he kept calling him Juraxon Profar. Everyone, if it's an inside joke, please let me know. It keeps saying stuff like Jurassic Profar so everybody knows they listened. He's getting a kick out of it. He's just miserable that he keeps messing up, but alas, that's where we are. @Silas Robert Shaw, longtime listener and commenter of the show, so thank you, sir. Arraez is the kind of guy who could thrive in San Diego Petco, doesn't need the ball to carry. Exactly my sort of opinion as well. I agree. And with Arraez, again, I said at the beginning of the season, and I still stand by it, that like at some point we have to have a conversation about the tangible wins and losses that all these trades have amounted to. And like I said, never owned over 90 wins. That's bad. So we'll have to see. But on paper, the move makes sense. And I really like a guy like Arraez. And it does really change my entire vibe of the team. He's probably going to play most days. I think what's going to be interesting to see is if there are days when they move the lineup around. Because he's an infielder, primarily second base. So if you want, and he also has a little bit of experience, I believe, at first base. So there are some days, depending on who wants a day off, maybe some mix and matches. Maybe you want to throw Solano in there. Maybe you want to throw Tyler Wade in there, whatever you want to do. That to me, there's a lot of potential here. You could move anyone to DH, and then you could put, let's say you put Cronenworth back at second, and then you put Solano at first. All that sort of stuff. Now, I don't want to move Cronenworth off first right now because I think he's been electric defensively there. I believe he's got +2 outs above average. He's in the top percentile in that regard. So I love that. But I'm just saying there's some interesting mix and match, I think, potential with adding Arraez to this lineup. And I don't want to like make this too loud, but if the Padres are bad, let's just pretend for a second that they're bad. If they are bad, is there a world in which Xander Bogaerts moves back to shortstop and then Arraez hold on, I'm getting this mixed up. If basically what I'm saying is if the Padres are bad and they trade Ha-Seong Kim, is that one of the reasons you have Arraez? That way you move Bogaerts back to shortstop and then Arraez is at second, or vice versa with Cronenworth. Is that what they're doing? Is this a preemptive, premature sort of, not even premature, is this a preemptive decision as well because he's got another year of control? And by the way, worth noting that the Marlins are paying down to the minimum of his salary. Baseball's hilarious, and I think it's hilarious that people don't realize that a lot of these teams will simply never be good because they don't spend and they have bad ownership. But that's a huge plus and could mean another move down the line. I don't know who's fully available. You've had Shane Bieber get the Tommy John surgery, but I clearly think that as of right now, the big thing is going to be a pitcher. Namely a starting pitcher, which is something everyone wants, so that's not unique. But even still, that's probably what Preller's got his eye on. So I'm very curious to see how that transpires. But we got to read some troll comments, folks. We gotta read some troll comments. Firstly, ladies and gentlemen, I want to give a shout out to my guy Hope Springs Eternal, my latest troll. Big fan of you, my friend. Deleting your comment and then making a new account called Loving Sports in order to send the same slander my way. And we're going to read that same slander because I actually think it is important, and actually there is a semblance of an intelligent thought in there that I think is worth discussing. and that is Loving Sports at Pew4CZ, which is Hope Springs Eternal, so you're in a new account. What in the world are you talking about? 2 years ago, the Padres advanced to the NLCS, or NLDS, I'm sorry. Well, there you go. NLCS is actually where they went to. Now, I know you said consistently, but you refused to even mention what happened 2 years ago when they went to the NLDS. And I think he means NLCS. And there you go again, always having to trash the team in some way, even when they do something amazing. I believe you are an enemy of the Padres. And you ignore the fact that teams often do not win at least 90 games, yet go to the World Series. How many wins did the Diamondbacks have last year, dude? They had 84 and went to the World Series. 2 years ago, the Phillies had less than 90 wins and went deep into the playoffs. Please do your research before you record. First of all, thank you for exposing me. I've actually never researched before I do this podcast. So apologies to everybody who listens. My issue with the win-loss, I do think it says something that Preller's been the GM for so long, and you haven't had one season where this amount of payroll, this amount of trade acquisitions has resulted in like a 92-win season or a 90-win season. I do think that says a lot. I really do. And I think that that is a reflection on the organization as a whole, which is why when Luis Arraez, the trade happened, my thing was like, this is great on paper. I have no issues with this. This is an awesome move. I think he fits this team great. But I do still fear a lot of things. As someone commented to me over the weekend saying, Adam Frazier was hitting 324 and we got him. Huge difference, though. This guy, Arraez, has always been a hitting machine. Adam Frazier just got lucky one year, and Preller, I think, mistakenly bought into, very foolishly bought into that season. But no, there are teams that win consistently 90 games, and there aren't teams like the Padres who perform so badly. The teams like the Phillies and whatnot, the Phillies have had like really bad roster issues, and they still like on paper. So like Schwarber and Castellanos are horrific defensively, and Castellanos doesn't even look like he can hit anymore, yet they still are like this dynamic, great team, right? So for me, that's my issue, is that you just don't know what you're going to get out of this team. And also, by the way, unlike some of those other teams, I'm not saying the Padres have to be the Dodgers to justify all the trades they've made, but some of those other teams, they don't have the collapses that the Padres do. 2019 second half, they fell apart. 2021 second half, famously, they completely exploded. And then 2023, they had like the most disappointing season in franchise history because they were just the least clutch team ever. That's what I'm saying. So like, it's like one of those things where it's different than the trade. It's like I'm analyzing the trade and saying I like it a lot, and I usually like a lot of the trades they make. But it's more like, is this actually the way to fix the team? That's what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Because look at all the moves they've made. I mean, they had Juan Soto and Xander Bogaerts. Xander Bogaerts like still hit okay last year, and they were an 81-win team, or 82-win team. Like, that's just not great. So for me, while this team has had the upside, clearly they have the upside. That's never gone away. More consistency is needed to justify like if these big mega blockbusters are worth it. Because there are teams out there who get 90 wins. Look at the Cleveland Guardians. Look at all that. The difference is the Padres, unlike those teams that don't spend, can win the World Series if they make it. But they need to make it first. And they haven't been very consistent at over the years. And they find these different disastrous ways to lose. So that's my point I'm trying to make. I know it's just a troll, but I felt like talking about it a little bit more in detail. If you would like to send me, though, more troll comments or any sort of slander against me, feel free to do so in the YouTube comments, guys, or at me on Twitter, at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO. That's basically it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, guys. Only pod, as always. That may be better than the Padres themselves. A little bit of a chunky boy episode. We will be talking probably some more Luis Arraez stuff tomorrow. But for now, that is it. Very excited to have him on that team. I just think he's going to be super dynamic. And I'm excited to recap the Chicago Cubs series this Thursday. Don't know what we'll do at all, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, the vibes are still okay. It's just, we need a little bit more for that starting pitching. Until then, though, till next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My Friar Faithful homies, take care.